There is a specific kind of terror that comes with waking up in a hospital and not knowing if anyone is coming for you. The pain is one thing, the fear is another, but the loneliness, the absolute certainty that you're facing this alone, that's what breaks you. My name is Grace Sullivan. I am 29 years old, and 4 years ago, I woke up from emergency surgery at 2 in the morning with a phone in my hand and a nurse telling me I needed to call someone. I called my parents, the people who were supposed to drop everything when their daughter was in danger, the people who were supposed to be there no matter what. My father answered on the fourth ring. I could hear the television in the background. I said, "Dad, I'm in the hospital. I just had emergency surgery. I need help." He said 5 words that I will never forget. "Grace, you need to figure it out." Then he hung up. I sat in that hospital bed, 25 years old, alone, in pain, trying to understand what had just happened. And then I did something I hadn't done in 5 years, something I'd been told not to do, something my parents had made very clear would disappoint them. I called my grandfather. What happened next didn't just change that night, it changed everything. Because the grandfather they'd spent years keeping me away from, the man they told me didn't want a relationship with me, answered on the first ring. And he said 3 words that made me realize my parents had been lying to me my entire life. "I'm on my way." Before I tell you what my grandfather did when he arrived at that hospital, before I tell you what I discovered about the 20 years of lies my parents had told me, I need something from you. If this story is already making your chest tight, if you've ever been abandoned by people who were supposed to protect you, if you've ever wondered if your family was telling you the truth about other family members, hit that like button right now. Subscribe to this channel if you want real stories about family betrayal, about discovering the truth, and about the people who show up when everyone else walks away. And drop a comment below. Tell me where you're watching from, your city, your country, your story, if you're ready to share it. Tell me if you've ever been kept from someone who actually loved you. I read every single comment. We're building a community here of people who survived family lies and came out stronger. Now, let me take you back to the beginning. To understand why I was alone in that hospital, you need to understand who my parents are and who they told me my grandfather was. I grew up in Portland, Oregon, in a brick house on Hawthorne Boulevard with 2 parents who presented themselves as perfect. My father, Richard Sullivan, worked in pharmaceutical sales. My mother, Patricia, was a real estate agent. Together, they made good money. Not wealthy, but comfortable. Upper middle class. Nice cars, nice vacations, nice appearances. They were the kind of parents who looked good from the outside. They showed up to parent-teacher conferences. They posted family photos on Christmas. They told their friends what a wonderful daughter they had. But behind closed doors, they had rules. So many rules. Rule number 1, don't ask for help unless necessary. They didn't believe in coddling. They said I needed to be independent, self-sufficient, strong. When I was 8 years old, I fell off my bike and scraped my knee badly. Blood everywhere. I ran inside crying. My mother looked at it, put a Band-Aid on it, and said, "You're fine. Go back outside and play." I wasn't fine. I still have the scar, but I learned not to cry about pain. Rule number 2, don't make them look bad, ever. Their reputation mattered more than anything. I was expected to be well-behaved, polite, and accomplished, but not too accomplished, not in a way that drew attention to myself, just enough to reflect well on them. Rule number 3, don't trust anyone outside the immediate family. My parents were deeply suspicious of other people. They said people couldn't be trusted, that family secrets should stay secret, that outside influences were dangerous. And the most important rule, the one that shaped my entire childhood, don't contact my father's father, my grandfather, Thomas Sullivan. I had vague memories of my grandfather when I was very young, before age 4. A big man with white hair and kind eyes.
I remember sitting on his lap. I remember him reading to me. I remember feeling safe. But after age 4, he was gone. I asked about him once when I was 7. My mother said, "Your grandfather made choices that hurt this family. We don't talk about him." When I was 10, I found a photo album in the attic, pictures of my father as a child with his father. My grandfather is smiling, holding my father, looking like a normal, loving father. I asked my father about it. He took the album from me. That was before he became who he is now. People change, Grace, not always for the better. I accepted it. What else could I do? I was a child. They were my parents. Why would they lie? The older I got, the clearer it became that my parents saw me as an inconvenience that needed to be managed, not a child who needed to be loved. When I was 13, I made the volleyball team. I was excited. I wanted them to come to games.
My mother said, "Grace, we both work. We can't just drop everything to watch you play a sport you'll quit in a year anyway." I didn't quit. I played all 4 years of high school. They came to 2 games. Both times, they left at halftime because they had other plans. When I was 15, I got sick. Really sick. Pneumonia. I was in bed for 2 weeks. My mother brought me soup once. The rest of the time, I was expected to take care of myself. When I was 17, I applied to colleges. I got into Oregon State University. Good school, close to home. I was excited. My father said, "We'll help with tuition, but you need to work for your living expenses. We're not funding your social life." I worked 30 hours a week while taking a full course load. I rarely saw them. When I did come home for the holidays, they barely asked about school. When I was 20, I was sexually assaulted at a party. I didn't tell them for 2 months. When I finally did, I was crying, shaking, barely able to get the words out. My mother said, "Grace, that's awful, but you need to be more careful. You know how boys are at parties. You can't put yourself in those situations." She blamed me. My father said, "Are you going to press charges?" I said no. I just wanted to forget about it. He said, "Then there's nothing we can do. You need to move on." They never brought it up again. I went to therapy. I paid for it myself. I worked through it alone. When I was 22, I graduated from college. They came to graduation, took one photo, left immediately after the ceremony. I got a job as a graphic designer in Portland. I moved into my own apartment. I built my own life. I saw my parents maybe once every 2 months. Brief dinners, surface-level conversations. They asked about my job, but never really listened to my answers. I was lonely, deeply lonely, but I'd accepted that this was my family. Distant, cold, uninterested. And then, when I was 25, everything changed. It was a Tuesday in November. I was at home after work. I'd been feeling tired for weeks, run down, but I thought it was just stress from a big project at work. Then the pain started, sharp, in my lower right abdomen. I thought maybe it was food poisoning or my period. I took some pain medication and tried to sleep. At midnight, I woke up screaming. The pain was unbearable, like someone was stabbing me repeatedly. I couldn't stand up. I couldn't think. I could barely breathe. I called 911. The ambulance came. The EMTs asked me questions I couldn't answer through the pain. At the hospital, they ran tests: CT scan, blood work, ultrasound. The doctor came in at 1:30 a.m. She said, "Grace, you have a ruptured appendix. We need to take you into surgery immediately. This is very serious. You're going into septic shock. Do you have someone we can call?" I gave them my parents' number. I said, "Please call them. Tell them I'm going into surgery." The nurse came back 10 minutes later. I left a message. They didn't answer. I said, "Please try again."
She tried 3 more times. No answer. They wheeled me into surgery at 2 a.m. I was terrified, alone, going into a potentially life-threatening surgery with no one there. I woke up at 6 a.m. in the recovery room. The nurse said, "The surgery went well, you're going to be okay, but you'll need to stay for a few days. Do you have someone who can be here with you?" I said, "Did my parents call back?" She checked. "No, honey, no calls." I felt something crack inside me. I asked for my phone. I called my father. He answered on the 4th ring. I said, "Dad, I'm in the hospital. I just had emergency surgery. My appendix ruptured. I almost died. I need help. Can you come?" He sighed, like I was inconveniencing him. He said, "Grace, it's 6 in the morning. We both have to work today. And if you're already through surgery, you're fine. You need to figure it out." I said, "Figure it out? Dad, I almost died. I'm alone. I need someone here." He said, "You're 25 years old. You're not a child. Handle it." Then he hung up. I stared at my phone, tears running down my face. Pain radiates through my body, completely alone. The nurse saw my face. She said gently, "Honey, is there anyone else you can call?" I thought about it. Friends, but most of them were in other cities or working. I didn't want to burden them. Then I thought about someone I hadn't contacted in over 20 years. My grandfather. I still had his number. I'd found it years ago in an old address book my father had thrown out. I'd saved it in my phone under a fake name, Tom Electrician, in case my parents ever looked. I'd never called it. I'd been too scared, too conditioned to believe he didn't want to hear from me. But I was desperate, alone, in pain, with nowhere else to turn. I dialed the number, not expecting an answer, expecting a disconnected line or a stranger. It rang. Once. Twice. On the 3rd ring, a voice answered. Deep. Warm. Exactly as I remembered from when I was 3 years old. "Hello?" I started crying. "Grandpa Tom? This is Grace. Grace Sullivan. I don't know if you remember me, but I'm your granddaughter, and I'm in the hospital, and I don't have anyone, and I'm sorry for calling, but I didn't know what else to do." The words came out in a rush, panicked, desperate. There was a pause. Then his voice was thick with emotion. "Gracie, oh my God. Gracie, where are you? What hospital?" I told him, Legacy Emmanuel Medical Center. He said, "I'm on my way. I'm 20 minutes away. I'll be there soon. You're not alone anymore, sweetheart. I'm coming." He hung up. I sat there holding my phone, shaking, wondering what had just happened. 23 minutes later, my hospital room door opened, and my grandfather walked in. I hadn't seen my grandfather in 21 years, but I recognized him immediately. He was older, 72 now, white hair, lined face, but the same kind eyes, the same gentle presence I remembered from when I was 3. He walked straight to my bed. He took my hand. He said, "Gracie, my Gracie, look at you. You're all grown up." I started crying. "I'm sorry for calling. I know you probably don't want to deal with this. I just didn't have anyone else. And—" He cut me off. "Stop. Stop right there. I've wanted to hear from you for 21 years. Every single day I've thought about you, wondered how you were, hoped you were okay. I never stopped wanting you in my life." I stared at him. "But Dad said you didn't want anything to do with me, that you'd made it clear you wanted nothing to do with our family." My grandfather's face changed, hardened. "That's what he told you?" I nodded. He sat down heavily in the chair next to my bed. "Gracie, I need to tell you something, and it's going to be hard to hear, but you need to know the truth." I said, "What truth?" He said, "Your father cut me off, not the other way around. When you were 4 years old, your father told me I wasn't allowed to see you anymore. He said I was a bad influence, that I was undermining his parenting, that I needed to respect his authority and stay away." I felt like the floor was tilting. What? Why? My grandfather sighed. "Because I told him I thought he was too hard on you. I saw how he treated you, how your mother treated you, like you were an inconvenience instead of a blessing. I told him he needed to be gentler, more present, more loving." He paused. "Your father didn't like that. He said I was overstepping, that how he raised his child was none of my business. We had a huge fight. He told me if I couldn't respect his parenting, I couldn't be part of your life." My grandfather's eyes filled with tears. "I tried, Gracie. I fought for you. I showed up at the house multiple times. I called. I sent letters. He returned every letter unopened. He threatened to get a restraining order if I didn't stop." He looked at me. "So I stopped, because I thought if I pushed too hard, I'd make things worse for you. I thought maybe when you were older you'd reach out, but you never did. And I thought that meant you believed what they told you, that you didn't want to know me." I was crying so hard I could barely breathe. "I thought you didn't want me. They told me you said I was a disappointment, that you wanted nothing to do with me." My grandfather's face crumpled. "Oh, Gracie, no, never. You were my whole world when you were little. Losing you was the worst thing that ever happened to me." He squeezed my hand. "But you called me today, and I'm here, and I'm not leaving." He stayed all day, all night. He slept in the chair next to my bed. When nurses came to check on me, they assumed he was my father. He didn't correct them. He brought me food from the cafeteria. He helped me to the bathroom when I could barely walk. He called my work and told them I'd be out for a week. He handled everything. The things my parents should have done, he did. On the second day, he asked gently, "Did you call your parents? Do they know you're here?" I told him what happened, what my father said. "Figure it out." My grandfather's jaw clenched. "That's unacceptable, Gracie. You almost died. You had emergency surgery, and they told you to figure it out?" I said, "That's how they've always been. I thought it was normal." He said, "It's not normal. It's neglect. And I'm sorry I wasn't there to protect you from it." On the third day, I was discharged. My grandfather took me to his house, a small craftsman bungalow in northeast Portland. He said, "You're staying with me until you're recovered. No arguments." I said, "I don't want to be a burden." He looked at me. "Gracie, you're my granddaughter. You're not a burden. You're a gift I thought I'd lost forever." I stayed with him for 2 weeks. During those 2 weeks, my grandfather told me everything. We sat at his kitchen table every evening after dinner, and piece by piece, he showed me the truth about my parents, about the family I thought I knew. He showed me letters, dozens of them. He'd written to me every year on my birthday, every Christmas, letters I'd never received. "Dear Gracie, you're 7 years old today. I wonder what you look like now. If you still love chocolate ice cream. If you still laugh at silly jokes. I miss you every day. Love, Grandpa Tom." "Dear Gracie, you're 10 years old now. I saw a girl who looked like you at the store today. Dark, curly hair, big brown eyes. It wasn't you, but for a moment I hoped it was. I hope you're happy. I hope you know you're loved, even from far away. Love, Grandpa Tom. 21 years of letters, all returned unopened by my father. My grandfather also showed me photos of me as a baby, as a toddler, with him, smiling, happy, safe. He said, "Your father has always been difficult. Even as a child, he needed control. He needed things done his way. And when people challenged him, he cut them out." He pulled out a notebook. "After your father cut me off, I kept track. Every time I tried to reach out, every letter returned, every phone call was ignored. I documented it all, in case one day you wanted to know the truth." I looked through the notebook. Pages and pages of dates, attempts to contact me, all blocked by my parents.
My grandfather said, "Your father told you I didn't want you. The truth is, he didn't want you to have anyone who might tell you the truth about him. He wanted you isolated, dependent only on him and your mother, so he could control the narrative." I said, "Why did Mom go along with it?" He said, "Your mother enables him. She always has. She's afraid of him, I think. Not physically, but emotionally. He's dominant and she's passive. Whatever he says goes." I thought about my childhood, all the times I'd been told I was too sensitive, too needy, too demanding, all the times I'd been made to feel like asking for love was asking for too much. My grandfather said, "Gracie, I need you to understand something. The way they treated you, that wasn't your fault. You were a child. You deserved love, attention, and protection. You deserved parents who showed up, who cared, who put you first." I started crying. I thought something was wrong with me. I thought I wasn't worth loving. He pulled me into a hug. "There's nothing wrong with you. There never was. What's wrong is them, and I'm sorry I couldn't protect you from that." During those 2 weeks, something else happened. My parents called me once, 5 days after my surgery. My mother's voice was cold. "Grace, your work called the house looking for you. They said you'd been out sick. What's going on?" I said, "I had emergency surgery. I almost died. I told Dad about it." She said, "Well, you're clearly fine if you're answering the phone. When are you coming back to work?" I said, "I'm recovering. I'll be back when I'm ready." She said, "Don't be dramatic. People have surgery all the time. You need to be responsible." I hung up. My grandfather heard the whole conversation. He said quietly, "You don't have to let them treat you that way." I said, "They're my parents." He said, "That doesn't give them the right to neglect you." When I was finally healed enough to go back to my apartment, my grandfather drove me home. He helped me carry my things upstairs. He made sure I had groceries. He wrote his phone number on a piece of paper and stuck it to my refrigerator. He said, "Call me, any time, day or night, for any reason. I'm not leaving your life again." I hugged him. "Thank you for everything." He said, "You're my granddaughter. I love you. I always have." After he left, I sat in my apartment thinking about everything I'd learned. 21 years of lies. 21 years of being told my grandfather didn't want me, when the truth was my father had stolen him from me. I made a decision. I called my father. He answered on the second ring. I said, "We need to talk, in person." He said, "Grace, I'm busy. Can this wait?"
I said, "No, it can't. Tomorrow, noon, the coffee shop on Burnside. If you're not there, I'm done with both of you." He was silent. Then, "Fine." The next day, both my parents showed up. They sat across from me at a small table, looking annoyed. My father said, "What's this about?" I said, "I spent the last 2 weeks with Grandpa Tom." My father's face went white, then red. "You did what?" I said, "I called him from the hospital when you told me to figure it out. He came, he stayed with me, he took care of me. He did everything you should have done." My mother said, "Grace, we told you not to contact him." I said, "You told me he didn't want me. You lied. For 21 years, you lied to me." My father said, "He's manipulating you, turning you against us." I pulled out my phone. I showed them a photo of one of the letters, one of the many letters my grandfather had written to me that they returned unopened. I said, "He sent me letters every year. You returned them. You kept him from me. Why?" My father said, "Because he's toxic. He undermines my authority." I said, "No, because he saw how you treated me, and you called you out on it, and you couldn't handle it." My mother said, "Grace, you're being ungrateful after everything we've done for you." I laughed, actually laughed. "What have you done for me? You told me to figure it out when I was dying. You blamed me when I was assaulted. You ignored me my whole childhood. You kept the one person who actually loved me away from me for 2 decades. My father stood up. "I don't have to listen to this." I said, "No, you don't, because I'm done. I'm done trying to earn love from people who are incapable of giving it. I'm done accepting neglect as normal. I'm done." My mother said, "You're cutting us off over this?" I said, "You cut yourselves off 4 years ago when you hung up on me in the hospital. You just didn't realize it until now." My father said, "If you walk away from us, don't expect to come back." I stood up. "I don't want to come back. I have a grandfather who actually loves me. That's more family than I've ever had with you." I walked out of that coffee shop. I blocked their numbers. I never spoke to them again. That was 4 years ago. I'm 29 now. My grandfather and I have dinner every Sunday. We talk on the phone 3 times a week. He's the first person I call with good news, the first person I turn to when I need help. He walked me through grief therapy when I finally processed the childhood I had. He was there when I met my now fiancé. He'll walk me down the aisle at my wedding next year. He's everything I needed my parents to be, and he's been waiting 21 years to be that person for me. My parents have tried to contact me twice, once through an aunt, once through a letter, both times saying I was overreacting, that I needed to forgive and move on. I didn't respond. Some people say I'm too harsh, that they're still my parents, that I should give them another chance. But here's what I know. They had 25 years to be parents. They chose not to. They chose control over love. They chose their egos over my well-being. And when I was dying, they told me to figure it out. That's not parenting. That's abandonment. My grandfather, the man they kept from me, the man they said didn't want me, showed me real love. He answered on the first ring. He said, "I'm on the way," and he stayed. That's family. My name is Grace Sullivan. I'm 29 years old. I almost died alone because my parents couldn't be bothered to show up.
but I didn't die alone because my grandfather, the man I wasn't supposed to call, answered the phone, and that changed everything. If this story meant something to you, leave a comment. Tell me about the person who showed up when everyone else walked away. Tell me about finding real family. Subscribe for more stories about people who survived neglect and found love anyway. Thank you for watching, and remember, family isn't who shares your blood. Family is who answers the phone.